as we know, you haven't run for office before. This is sort of your first foray into politics, and you're not only running now for MPP in York Simcoe, but for the top job, the leadership job. So what is it in your resume, or what makes you qualified to be Premier of Canada's largest province?
Well, I've been working for 20 years in law and business. I started a charity, and I've been doing that while raising kids. I think I bring a different kind of experience to Queen's Park. I think we've had 15 years of Liberal government. There's a lot of legislative experience there, and it's gotten us into the mess that we're in. And so I think people are really looking for something different. Although people haven't seen me on the floor of a legislature before, that doesn't mean that I don't have the skills and the qualifications to lead. I've just been doing it behind closed doors, and so I bring a lot of, I've also been I'm the only candidate in this race who put their name forward before the leadership to try to get Ontario back on track. I made that commitment by putting my name forward. I care deeply about this. I've been doing that hard work, and I know that I can lead the party to victory on June 7th.
Mm-hmm. Some people have said, some people within caucus are saying, though, that they want a leader who's ready to hit the ground running, who knows Queen's Park well, who already knows the caucus, has worked with them, because of the tight timeline between the end of the leadership race and the June election. So what's your response to that, that you're not familiar with Queen's Park or the members of caucus, and for that reason perhaps they're supporting someone like Christine Elliott, who's been through a leadership race before, has been through campaigns before, and knows it better?
Look, I've been knocking on doors and organizing my campaign. I've put together a leadership campaign in short order. This is about continuing on, taking the momentum that we've developed over the last few months as a party that I've been participating in and I've been part of, and taking that, harnessing it, and keep just continue on that path. I've got a great team. I've got a lot of people, candidates who are supportive and caucus members who are supportive, and this is about a team effort. The party is going to win, and so I've got a lot of experience behind me, next to me, that I'll be able to rely on.
Okay, I want to ask you some policy questions. The other two declared candidates in the race, Doug Ford and Christine Elliott, have both come out against the carbon tax. And I want to know your position on that. It is within the People's Guarantee, within the platform, but it's a very divisive issue within the PC party. So where do you stand on that?
Well, as a Conservative, I'm not in favor of taxes. I want to lower taxes on Ontarians who already are paying too much. And the carbon tax, I'm not a fan of a carbon tax, but this is a federal tax that's being imposed on us, and we have a choice. Either the federal Liberals can take that revenue and decide how it's spent, or we can do that. And to make sure that that money goes back into people's pockets, Conservatives are best placed. But that said, this is day one of my campaign, and I know there are a lot of issues that Conservatives want to talk about, and I plan on going out there and meeting as many people as possible and talking about them about the things that they'd like to see once we get to government.
Okay, so you would follow through on the carbon tax then? That's within the platform?
Look, it's day one. I believe that this is something that's coming from the federal government, and I'm not in favor of adding more taxes, but we've got to talk about it. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that if there is more taxes imposed on us by the federal government, that we make sure that it gets back to the money goes back to people's pockets.
Speaking of that, another big issue lately here in Ontario has been the minimum wage increase that took effect on January 1st. How do you feel about it? Do you think it was necessary and needed? Would you roll it back if you become Premier?
Well, the party said we're not going to roll it back. People deserve to earn a living wage, and I believe that. I just note that they've been in government for a long time, and they decided that this was essential. The Liberals decided that this was essential for Ontarians 6 months before an election. So the party has discussed this, caucus discussed this, and we're going to keep it at $14, and then we're going to phase it in over time.
Are there any other Liberal policies that you would roll back or scrap if you became Premier?
I would scrap cap and trade, and that is something that will take a little bit of time because of the way it's phased in, but that would be something that I would do. And we're going to start looking at how to cut back on hydro rates. We've got to make life more affordable for Ontarians.
What about the OHIP Plus program, the rent control, other policies that the Wynne government's brought in?
There are a lot of policies that they've implemented over the last few weeks and few months in advance of the election, and I want to wait for the budget to come out and see how they've costed all this, and make sure I have an understanding of the fiscal picture before we start making any decisions about what we're cutting.
And back to the leadership race for a minute. Doug Ford seemed to suggest the other day that you've lived outside of the country for a long time, and he's also sort of railing against the party elites. How do you plan on pushing back against the narrative that might come from the Ford campaign in terms of how they might try and portray you to Ontario voters?
Look, as I said, I've been in this race since last year because I really care about getting Ontario back on track. I care about running a positive, unifying campaign. That's what Conservatives want. All the candidates feel like we see victory. We have to get there, and we need a leader who's going to unify us. This isn't I don't see this as an opportunity to throw punches at anybody. I have lived in Ontario most of my life. I have lived elsewhere, and what it's taught me is this is the best place to live. And I've been raising my children here and want to make sure that this is a place where my children will have opportunities, all children will have opportunities, and this is about delivering victory for the Conservatives and for Ontarians on June 7th.
And speaking of unity within your party, it's been obviously a very tumultuous 10 days or so, given the resignation of Patrick Brown. How would you get the party back on track, and just what was your personal reaction to his resignation? Do you think it was fair how it all unfolded, given that these were unproven allegations? Did he have to resign?
My reaction was shocked, like so many people. It all happened very quickly. I think that he made the decision by stepping aside. I think that going forward we need to turn the page. We need to make sure that these kinds of allegations, women feel comfortable coming forward with them. We have to make sure that we look closely at all the facts before we make any decisions. But the party is excited and unified about the fact that we can deliver victory. We can be victorious. We can win on June 7th, and we just need to continue that. So I know from other candidates that I've spoken to and caucus members that they feel a lot of confidence about how we're positioned and how we're doing, and we just have to keep doing that. We have to continue on that road.
Before you can one or two more? Okay, before you turn the page, would he hasn't voluntarily left caucus yet. If you become leader, would you kick Patrick Brown out of caucus? Would you sign his nomination papers to allow him to run in the June election? Should he get that chance or no?
He is a member of caucus. We've got to make sure we have the right process in place to look at all the facts. And everyone needs to be treated fairly in these circumstances.
So how do you get the facts then? There's no police investigation. How do you determine whether he's welcome?
We've got to look into it. We've got to look into it. Things have happened so quickly, and we can't rush to judgment on anything. But the key thing is that we understand that women who've experienced these issues feel safe coming forward.
Can I squeeze one more in, because she might want to answer this one? I was at a Doug Ford rally on Saturday, and I asked someone there about the idea of potentially 3 women competing against each other to be Premier in June. And she said, "Oh, I don't think a woman should be Premier of Ontario. I want a man. Men are stronger, they have more backbone. Yep, I think a man should be Premier of Ontario." What do you want to say to that woman?
I'm shocked we have a female Premier of Ontario right now. So, we need to have the most qualified person as Premier of Ontario, and that's what this is about. As a woman, I love to have more women represented in politics, but this is really about being the most qualified person.